What's up, YouTube? DJ Kryptonite here, talking pro boxing, sports, combat sports, and the like. Before we get started, I just want to say like, subscribe, comment, all of that jazz if you feel impelled to do so. But let's get right to it. What I want to talk about is Jaron Ennis and his rise to the #1 spot in most of the sanctioning bodies' top 10 rankings. Um, if you're like me, I'm a boxing enthusiast. I'm a boxing fan, and a lot of times people disagree with me, and I enjoy the back and forth. I appreciate it. It's engaging to me. I like to debate. It's not an issue, but I just like to hear people's opinions on things. So please do so. But my question to everybody is, how is Jaron Ennis ranked uh, #1 in most of the sanctioning bodies? Are we basing that on talent, or are we basing that on accomplishment? Because although he's 29-0, I don't believe he's actually beaten anybody in the top 10. In fact, I don't even know if he's challenged anybody or even proposed to fight anybody in the top 10, because he talks about fighting any and everybody. But I hadn't seen him discuss any fights with Ortiz, Ben, Thurman. It's a number of fighters that you should actually have some sort of competitive fight with before you get a shot at undisputed. I'm not quite sure how that works these days, but in the past, again, I'm an old school guy. Before you got to the point where you're fighting for undisputed or even a title, you would have to touch at least one or two people in the top 10 just to be considered. So even if you're ranked #1, 2, 3, you should actually fight somebody within the top 10 to say, yes, he's legit, or he's ready, he's poised to take the next step to get a title, as opposed to being just placed in the #1 spot because of some popularity contest or the way you look in a fight or whatever the case may be. I believe it should be a competitive process to get in the top 10 like it used to be in the old school. I don't see that happening anymore. People just advance to the #1 spot for beating no names. So you're just basing it on appearance, or it's so much subjectivity associated with it in general. But when you move somebody into the top 10 without actually fighting anybody in the top 10, and then a boxer gets upset for not getting a shot, so they protest and contest or appeal to one of the sanctioning bodies when they haven't even had a contest with a top 10 fighter within the division. And that's the rumor that I believe Ennis is contesting. He's actually contesting or appealing the IBF because he's rated #1 in the IBF. So he's actually appealing, saying, hey, he wants a shot at Errol Spence under the IBF because he's ranked #1. So I guess Keith Thurman can actually propose the same thing because he's ranked #1 in the WBC rankings. So all of these rankings, I guess, have some sort of a justification to have their #1 guy, I guess, contest for the title. Staniones is, I believe, the WBA #1 because he's actually the world welterweight champion, but Errol Spence is actually the super champion for the WBA. So Staniones is the #1 ranked guy for the WBA. So he has, I guess, some sort of argument to be next for Errol Spence. But again, these people need to fight amongst themselves. At some point, you need to fight somebody within the top 10 to be a legitimate #1. How can you be a #1 and you fought no one in the top 10? Keith Thurman is probably the only one that throughout his career, even though he's been fairly inactive, that can actually make a claim to say, yes, I've fought. My resume dictates that I should get a shot at the undisputed title. Although he's been inactive, he has a loss or two, and yes, his record is blemished, but he has a resume. So my thought is, a lot of these young fighters who say, oh, I need a shot, I need a shot. Well, you get a shot when you start fighting top 10 fighters. Back in the day, Mike Tyson had to go through people to get to the title. He had to fight people ranked in the top 10 before he got there. Sugar Ray Leonard had to do the same thing. You have to get through people in the top 10, one or two. I'm not saying you have to go through all 10 of the people in the top 10, but you need to legitimize your stance and say, hey, I want a shot. Well, who have you beaten in the top 10? So when Jaron Ennis says, oh, I'm going to appeal the IBF because I want a shot at the undisputed, how do you get a shot at the undisputed when you hadn't fought anybody in the top 10? I don't quite understand. That just doesn't, that's almost like somebody saying, I'm going to the Super Bowl, but I don't need to go through the playoffs. A football team saying, we're going to the Super Bowl, but all I need to do is beat a couple of teams in the regular season, and I'm gonna bypass the playoffs. I don't need to play anybody that's legitimate or has any kind of chance or shot at a Super Bowl. I don't need to compete at that because I did so great in the regular season. Well, Ennis is a regular season fighter right now because he hadn't fought anybody in the top 10. So until you do that, you don't have a legitimate claim to an undisputed title. Where does that happen? I don't quite understand it. First, Ennis needs to fight somebody in the top 10, be it Thurman, Staniones, whoever the case may be, before he starts trying to get at Errol Spence, who has the majority of the titles. He is the guy. It's not like he has one title and you're saying, hey, I want that shot. No, this guy has 3 belts. And you're saying, I need a shot. So you fight no names, and then you get to the top and you fight the guy, and you expect to get all of the belts? That doesn't even make any sense to me. That makes no sense. Fight somebody in the top 10, then legitimize yourself, or then that will legitimize you as a legitimate number 1. But until then, you're not a legitimate number 1. Who are you at number 1? Because somebody likes the way you fight? Fight somebody in the top 10, then you go see Errol. That's how that works. Or then you go see Terrence Crawford. Either way, but you hadn't fought anybody. You need to fight one of these young lions or young guys or even a veteran like Keith Thurman to get that step to the level where you can compete or contest for undisputed or for a title. Right now, I don't see it. I don't see it. Unless it's a popularity contest, because you hadn't fought anybody. So let's do away with all this BS about, oh, he should get a shot, or they running from or Jaron Ennis. They're not running from him. He hadn't even deserved a shot yet. He hadn't fought anybody. Anyway, I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on it. Again, let me know your thoughts. Like, subscribe, comment. DJ Kryptonite out. Have a good night.